McDonald's is shutting down its experimental beverage-led restaurant concept after about a year and a half.
McDonald's is now known for its dollar menu, is having a tough time getting customers in the door due to the struggling economy. And Annie Gasparo is here to tell us how Mickey D's is making some changes to get more Big Macs on the table.
McDonald's is struggling. The brand is reporting a drop in sales worldwide. They're down by 1%. McDonald's shares have tanked by 15%. Why? Because customers find their burgers too expensive now, and many prefer to eat at home instead.
The Golden Arches, once a symbol of comfort and consistency, now stand in the midst of one of the most stunning corporate breakdowns in modern history. Within a single quarter, McDonald's fell from global dominance into a crisis few thought imaginable. Promotions that once drew in crowds became irrelevant. A storm of economic shocks, political maneuvering, and supply chain failures pushed the company into survival mode. Then came the unthinkable. More than 12,000 restaurants shuttered, tens of thousands of employees were suddenly without work, and billions in revenue vanished almost overnight. The announcement from Chicago this morning landed like a thunderclap. McDonald's CEO confirmed the rumors insiders had whispered for weeks. Even the U.S. system itself was being forced into temporary closure. The market reacted instantly. Shares plummeted. Lawsuits worth tens of billions piled up against both the company and the government, and Wall Street struggled to absorb the implications. The question hanging over the economy is stark. How did the world's most recognizable fast food empire collapse so quickly? And what happened to the arches fall for good? The Big Mac, once a proud emblem of American consumer culture, now sits at the center of an escalating economic and political storm. What was long seen as a symbol of national pride is becoming collateral damage in a trade war that spiraled beyond its original purpose. The promises attached to making America great again are colliding with the reality of protectionist policies, forcing Americans to confront the steep costs hidden behind such decisions. The IT all began with the White House's signing of the America First 2.0 order on March 4th, followed by the McPaw 2025 directive. Together, they triggered one of the most aggressive tariff campaigns in modern history. Imports from Canada and Mexico were immediately slapped with a 25% levy, with threats that certain goods could face tariffs as high as 145% in the weeks ahead. On paper, those figures look like abstractions. In practice, they unleashed retaliation that rattled the foundations of global trade. Canada responded swiftly, launching a 25% tariff on $30 billion worth of American exports, striking beef and cheese in particular, products vital to U.S. farmers and food chains. The European Union followed with a $28 billion retaliation package targeting American dairy and meat. For McDonald's, this blow was especially severe. Nearly 70% of its beef, cheese, and frozen potato supply came from imports. The company's finely tuned just-in-time system, which had run smoothly for decades, collapsed in less than 3 months. Beef prices surged as tariffs strangled already strained supplies. By spring, domestic ground beef cost 43% more than it had just 5 years earlier. Potatoes, cheese, and even basic packaging materials ballooned in price, leaving the chain scrambling to keep up. The impact spread outward. Lamb Weston, one of the largest potato processors responsible for billions of servings of fries each year, admitted it had hiked prices nearly 25% to offset tariffs and rising transport costs. Its production output fell 8% in the first quarter alone. Even paper packaging and plastic cups, once afterthoughts, now carried a 25% tariff at the border, pushing their cost up by half. These changes struck at the foundation of McDonald's most profitable weapon, the value menu. For decades, the $1 model had relied on razor-thin margins made viable only through astronomical volume. Once costs rose past 10%, there was no buffer left. By early 2025, wholesale food prices were running 35% higher than pre-pandemic levels. Profits evaporated before a burger could even reach a customer's tray. Inside the company, sales reports told the same bleak story. U.S. same-store sales dropped 3.6% in a single quarter, the steepest decline since the pandemic. Discount bundles and limited-time promotions no longer entice diners because rising costs outpace revenue at nearly double the rate. Analysts warned that if tariffs climbed further, U.S. GDP growth would falter, inflation would accelerate, and companies like McDonald's would remain stuck in a cycle where mere survival replaced profit as the objective. Each time the fryers buzzed, the company bled cash. The first visible surrender came with the collapse of the dollar menu. Once the chain's greatest draw for working-class families, it could no longer exist under such pressures. Input costs had climbed 35% since 2019, forcing prices higher by the same amount. Internal memos acknowledged that beef, cheese, potatoes, and even paper bags were each a third more expensive than 5 years earlier. The outcome was unavoidable. The value menu vanished. For millions of families, McDonald's had always been the fallback option when paychecks ran thin. Yet revenue from value deals plunged 18% in just 2 months, a number previously unthinkable for the company. Without a low-cost option to anchor its appeal, the model unraveled. Faced with no alternative, McDonald's leadership introduced a controversial survival plan known internally as Project Golden Arch Exit. At its center was a painful choice: shut down 6 U.S. processing plants and move significant portions of production overseas. Executives argued it was the only way forward in an environment where domestic supply chains could no longer support their scale. To critics, however, the decision marked the end of an era. The Golden Arches had once embodied America's cultural and economic reach. Now, they stood as a reminder of how quickly global interdependence, when disrupted, can topple even the mightiest. Vietnam and Brazil emerged as the central pillars of McDonald's survival plan. The Brazilian meat giant JBS committed $100 million to build plants in Vietnam, focusing on beef, poultry, and pork, much of which would be shipped back to feed McDonald's global system. The move gave the company a way to sidestep U.S. tariffs while tapping into lower-cost labor markets. It also anchored McDonald's within international trade networks that Washington itself was increasingly excluded from. Yet the strategy carried enormous risks. For decades, the chain's reputation rested on speed and consistency, delivering fresh ingredients within days. Relocating production to South America and Southeast Asia introduced long-haul shipping, fragile logistics, and countless potential failure points. A missed temperature check in storage, a bottleneck at a crowded port, or a storm cutting off a shipping lane could wipe out entire shipments. The longer supply chain not only made consistency harder to guarantee, but also threatened consumer trust in the quality of the food itself. For a company built on reliability, even minor lapses carried serious consequences. The dangers became real quickly. Across the Midwest, from Iowa to Ohio, outlets closed or slashed hours as supplies dried up. Iowa, once home to a thriving potato processing hub, was hit especially hard. Workers who had supported a regional network of growers and processors suddenly found themselves unemployed, searching for lower-paying alternatives. Government data revealed that more than 24,000 food processing workers nationwide were laid off or had hours reduced in just the first quarter, an 18% jump from the year before. For employees, franchise owners, and suppliers, the collapse of McDonald's value chain wasn't an abstract corporate crisis, but a daily reality of lost wages and empty dining rooms. The broader economic picture was no less alarming. A tariff structure threatening to climb as high as 145% on agricultural imports, alongside 25 to 50% levies on packaging materials, suffocated an industry surviving on margins of barely 5%. That math made profitability almost impossible. Every burger that hit the tray represented a loss instead of a gain. The offshoring plan, marketed as strategic adaptation, was in truth a desperate bid for survival. But by shifting away from its home turf, McDonald's risked alienating loyal consumers who had long seen the brand as an American icon. At the same time, the company's one simple formula of affordability was slipping away. Without a dependable low-cost menu, McDonald's was no longer the default option for working-class families. Competitors seized the moment. Wendy's rolled out combo deals nearly 10% cheaper than before. Burger King lured diners with a $2.99 Whopper. KFC unveiled its own discounted family bundles. As rivals pushed aggressively, McDonald's was caught between protecting the quality of its food and trying to assemble a supply chain stretched across oceans and untested under real-world strain. No matter how production shifted or logistics were rerouted, one reality dominated: the cost of making every burger, pouring every soda, and serving every pack of fries had climbed sharply underweight to tariffs. Washington's insistence on bringing jobs back home had collided with the economics of global fast food. The very policies designed to protect American workers were now crushing the low-cost model that had made McDonald's accessible to millions for generations. Unless tariff tensions ease or government support materializes, McDonald's risks becoming the first major domino to fall. And if it falls, it will not fall alone. Smaller businesses already stretched thin by rising costs are facing the same chokehold, but without the resources of a global giant. The implications stretch well beyond one company. For decades, Made in America carried immense pride. But the current crisis forces a harder question. How can that ideal coexist with consumer needs in a global economy? When affordable meals disappear, working families and the middle class are left cornered. They can spend more than they can reasonably afford or settle for lower quality substitutes. Inflation has already driven grocery bills to record highs. Fast food had long been the fallback for millions. Now even that safety net is slipping away, leaving households more vulnerable than ever. Inside corporate headquarters, McDonald's leadership is scrambling to preserve trust in the brand. Every resource is being funneled into cutting costs, dodging tariffs, and safeguarding reputation. Yet the risks are relentless. A sudden disruption in global shipping, another escalation in tariffs, or a shift in government policy could transform Project Golden Arch exit from survival blueprint into the path of collapse. If McDonald's, with its vast global footprint and deep financial reserves, cannot withstand the pressure, the outlook for smaller competitors is dire. The stakes go far beyond fast food. How many packaging facilities, processing plants, and family-owned farms will move operations abroad in search of stability? How many investors will pull back, further eroding confidence in the U.S. economy? For workers already displaced, the promise of revived domestic industry rings hollow against the reality of empty paychecks and shuttered outlets. For families, the fading of an affordable option like McDonald's signals something larger. A system once built on cheap, reliable food is breaking down under political and economic strain. The Golden Arches once represented stability, familiarity, and American culture itself. Now they tremble under the weight of lawsuits, tariffs, and global market forces beyond their control.